Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the House and Senate Education Conference Committee. Where we left off yesterday was we were discussing the addition of House Bill 2400 to Senate Bill 123, and I believe we were discussing an amendment at the time, and I believe we have that amendment. All right. Jason, would you care to explain the amendment, please, to the committee?
Mr. Chairman, this amendment simply puts a sunset on the adult learner grant program of 6 years. And so the provisions would expire on July 1st of 2029 if this is included in the bill.
Very good. Discussion? Senator Baumgartner.
I don't think that we have any discussion at this point. If you have other amendments to this, let's look at those and then we'll pull out and come back and respond.
Okay, we do have one more amendment on this one. Jason, if you'll explain the amendment, and then I'll turn it over to Representative Estes.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this amendment would require students participating in the Kansas Adult Learner Grant Program to maintain a cumulative grade point average of 2.0 or higher, or the equivalent thereof. As discussed yesterday, this is a separate requirement as drafted here. Just remind the committee that on 2132, with a similar amendment, you amended that so that the 2.0 grade point average was only applicable to those courses in the program.
Representative Estes.
And this was written before we made the tweak, but I would, once we adopted the adopted version to match what we did yesterday.
Senator Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question on the language of this. If I look at number 1, it says maintain satisfactory academic progress toward completion of the adult learner grant eligible programs and maintain a cumulative grade point, etc. What is the additional satisfactory academic progress that's mentioned in number 1 above if it's not defined as maintaining a 2.0 grade point average?
Representative Estes.
That was language that was in the bill already, and it mirrors the Promise Act. And it's not very well defined, and that's why I wanted to add the 2.0 in the program. It left it to the institutions to define it, but I think it's important for us to say what our minimum is as well.
Senator Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like the 2.0 is in addition to other satisfactory academic progress, and I'm wondering what that would be defined as. I mean, the way it reads is you've got this academic progress and a 2.0. I'm wondering what the other academic progress is. If that's not defined, do we need to define it? Or is the definition of satisfactory academic progress the 2.0 GPA? That's my question.
Jason.
Mr. Chairman, referring back to the discussion on a similar amendment on 2132 yesterday, the conference agreed to an amendment that satisfactory academic progress would include maintaining a grade point average of 2.0 or higher. And I believe Representative Estes' intent with this balloon is to do the same here. So that language would appear actually after academic progress. So it would be maintained satisfactory academic progress, including a grade point average of 2.0 or higher or the equivalent thereof toward completion of the adult learner grant eligible program.
Thank you. That makes more sense to me. Thank you.
Further discussion on the amendment? Senator Baumgartner.
Do you have any additional amendments?
On 2400, I believe we don't.
So we will go and briefly discuss and come right back.
Very good.
Yes. Okay.
Senator Baumgartner.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we are in full support of the language as the revisor spoke to as far as the grade point average of the 2.0, indicating that that is the requirement for satisfactory academic progress. Our counter on the sunset is to change the date to July 1, 2028. And the thought process on that is you would definitely have one cohort that would complete, but since students would be eligible for this, perhaps that stair-stepped 2 years elsewhere already have college credits elsewhere, you could potentially have multiple students that would be completers after 2 years or 3 years. And so we feel like there would be enough cohort going on, and this would be a good spot check.
So you're talking 5 years instead of 6 years, basically?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, we're good with that. We're good.
And Mr. Chair, I do have an amendment.
Jason, would you care to explain the amendment, please?
Mr. Chairman, this amendment appears on page 4 of House Bill 2400, and it would add a new subsection to the statute that monies awarded as a grant under this act would only be expended for tuition, required fees, and the cost of books and required materials. So it would be a limitation on the use of the grant monies received by the student.
We have no issues with this amendment.
That's great, and, you know, one of the things, by codifying this with this specific language, anyone with a military background, all of those things would be included, so that it was quite clear how it was going to be expended. So thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other discussion on 2400 or the amendments we've put into it? Okay, we have one last amendment that I mentioned briefly. I know we talked at the very beginning of this committee about the original contents of 2138, the CTE bill, and the reimbursement for that. I would like to offer that as an amendment. I think as we continue to discuss workforce development, as we talk about the shortage, I think we need to make sure all options are on the table. I do have an amendment that may please the questions that we got on this bill. I know, Madam Chairman, I think I sent you some of the information I got from Commissioner Watson as far as the data that we had talked about, but I would like to offer the amendment on 2138, the original contents, the CTE bill, and discuss this bill as a possible amendment. Jason?
Mr. Chairman, the balloon that was just handed out would strike all of subsection B of House Bill 2138 as it passed the House and replace that with a provision requiring school districts and colleges that offer CTE for students enrolled in high school that upon request of a student, they would pay the fees charged for any assessment or other examination that's required for the student to obtain an approved industry-sought CTE credential. You will also note on page 2 that the payment language of subsection D would also be stricken, as there would be no reimbursement payments to the school district or the college for the payment of the cost of the assessment or examination. This would, I will note, just be limited to those CTE credentials that are approved, and the approval language is retained there in subsection C on page 1 and the top of page 2.
Thank you, Jason. Sure, as you're reading, you'll probably think of questions, so let me know if there's discussion on the amendment. Senator Baumgartner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I read this, so if the student is taking concurrent enrollment, but they're actually receiving the instruction at a technical college or a community college, is it the technical college or community college that needs to pay the fee, or is it the school district that needs to pay the fee?
Mr. Chairman, it's my understanding that under current practice, some of the technical colleges are helping the student as they complete that CTE credential with the assessment and examination. And so this would provide that the student could request the college that they're taking the course from pay for that assessment or examination.
Senator Sykes.
Thank you. Is there any means testing for this or requirement that the student would actually go into that career? I know a lot of high school students kind of take some of these career tech ed programs, but it's just part of their high school course. They're not really going into this. And is there any means testing?
Right, so there's no requirements on the student. Their goal is just to get the CTE certification. Any other questions? Okay. We will wait.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So our feedback is we would need Jason to help on the language on this, but essentially, any students enrolled in any of the grades 9 through 12, receiving career technical education through the district or a college shall request of their school district to pay any fees charged for an assessment or other examination that's required. So we are essentially striking, we're making it quite clear who will be making the payment, and that would be the school district. And just as a point of clarification, we did go through the data that's been provided with regard to Excel and Career Tech Ed, and the number one certification requested or participated in is the CNA, Certified Nurse Aide. Last year, there were 1,079 students that sat for that certification, and the cost of it is $15. Now, I am not going to minimize the cost of $15 because for some families and for some students, they're not going to go home and say, Mom, I need a check for $15 because they know the reality. That check's not available. So I am in no means minimalizing the impact of a $15 expense. But we do feel school districts who are receiving that funding for that student, if they're receiving the training at a community college or tech college, they still get to count that student as one FTE. They are being fully funded for that student even though they're receiving the instruction elsewhere. If they're receiving instruction there at the school district, they are definitely receiving that additional 0.5 VE funding. Then we looked at the second most utilized assessment, and that was the NCCER. And thanks to our higher ed folks, that's construction. 191 students took that exam for certification, and the cost of that is roughly $30. So we are not seeing that as being overly burdensome for school districts, but we felt we needed to make a clear delineation and distinction of who would be expected if the student made that request. Also, in our other House Education Joint Conference Committee, we have rolled out the KEEP grant program, and that's $1,000 for those kids that are eligible on free and reduced. And those funds could be used if the student did not want to ask the school to pay for it. But we certainly see that that would be part of something that the school district could pay for. So that is our counteroffer.
So your counteroffer is the language that you offered to make those technical changes. Was that it? We concur. Senator Sykes.
Thank you. I have an ask on a previous bill that so on 2138, I'm asking that we possibly consider removing the portion about the beds, and that could be put into 2236, and then leave 2138 just requiring the school just adopting the policy if there's a school closure.
Okay, so the motion is we take the contents of the overnight hotel bill out of 2138 as amended in this conference committee and add that to House Bill 2236, the Parents' Rights Bill as amended in this committee. Is that?
That's my ask.
Okay. We are fine with that position.
So keeping the language of the bed bill that's in 2138, but removing it from that portion of the bill and putting it into 2236 with the Parents' Bill of Rights.
So now House Bill 2236 will have the parents' rights portion as well as the overnight hotel piece of legislation in it, and then the amended 2138 will only have the district consolidation piece in it. Okay? We'll come back with that. What time do you all have available this afternoon to come back and finish on this one? Or before that? All right, we will recess this or adjourn until 5:30 tonight. I want to make sure, do we have a concur on the amendments that we made to Senate Bill 123 with the additions of the Promise Act Bill 2400 and the original contents of 2138 as amended? Very good. We will see you at 5:30.